At CPX, we're always interested in pursuing questions of God, faith, atheism, doubt. What's the nature of the universe? Has science gotten rid of the need for God? Well, someone who's well placed to take part in that discussion is Dr. William Lane Craig, philosopher, author of over 30 books, and someone who has for decades engaged with non-believers, as he has made the case that Christian faith is both reasonable and rational. Dr. Craig is Research Professor of Philosophy at the Talbot School of Theology in California. His website is reasonablefaith.org. Well, Dr. William Lane Craig, so good to have you in the studio. Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Now, I want to ask you about new atheism. It's been very much on the front foot in the last 10 years or so. I wonder if you could comment on where you think this has come from and also where it's going.
All right. I think what distinguishes the new atheism from the old atheism is that these people want to eliminate religion not only from the public square, but even from the private sphere. They want to see religion exterminated entirely from society, and so they're extremely aggressive. And I think that this grows partly out of a reaction to the rise of Islamic jihadism and the use of violence in the name of religion. These folks, unfortunately, do not have a very nuanced view of religion, and so they tar them all with the same brush and think that even those who follow the ethics of Jesus are somehow dangerous to society.
Yeah, is there a sense in which this has nonetheless brought up some important questions that are now being discussed, at least in this country, more than they were?
Yes, fair enough, and I think it has awakened a need among ordinary Christian lay people for being equipped in the defense of the faith, being able to articulate what they believe and why they believe it.
And I wonder if something else that's new about new atheism is this idea that it's somehow good news that we live in a godless universe.
Yes, I think that's fair observation. Classical atheists like Bertrand Russell and others were sorry that God doesn't exist. Russell said, only upon the firm foundation of unyielding despair can life's foundation be firmly built. And yet the new atheists seem to have no consciousness of the consequences of atheism, and therefore have this sort of glib, celebratory attitude that I think is quite superficial and thoughtless.
Yeah, what are the implications?
The human race and all of life, the universe, is destined to perish in the eventual heat death of the universe. So there is no purpose. I don't think there's any ultimate meaning or significance to life on the atheistic view. And I think it's questionable whether there are any objective moral values or duties on the atheistic view. In the absence of God to serve as a transcendent plumb line for right and wrong, good and evil, moral values are just the subjective byproducts of biological evolution and social conditioning. And that means that it's impossible to condemn something like the Holocaust or apartheid or discrimination as objectively wrong, nor can you praise love and tolerance and self-sacrifice as objectively good, because in an atheistic universe, objective good and evil simply do not exist.
Yeah, you sometimes hear people say, but look, my life has meaning in as much as it's the meaning I create for it, or I'll live a perfectly moral life, which involves being kind to other people. But you're trying to get a bit below that, aren't you?
Exactly. That's simply talking about your subjective attitude, your personal choice. But on an atheistic view, the decision between being an Adolf Hitler and a Mother Teresa is like choosing between Burger King and McDonald's. It's just a matter of personal taste, and you cannot say that the psychopath or the war criminal does anything objectively evil.
Even Mother Teresa comes in with some criticism from people like Christopher Hitchens. That's part of a kind of a resentment of the institutional church, isn't it? Do you think that's part of what's there?
It seems to be. How else could you explain such vitriolic attacks upon someone who has given her life self-sacrificially for the care of the poor and the needy? It's astonishing, the vitriol that characterizes much of the rhetoric of the new atheism.
And in that regard, do you have a sense of where this might be going? We have seen some changes or some voices within atheism in recent years saying, look, we're not for this kind of vitriol.
That's
we want
right.
to have a more reasonable discussion.
That's right. I think that it's important to understand that the new atheism is a pop cultural phenomenon. It does not represent the direction in which the academy, the intellectuals are moving, which I think is quite the opposite direction. And so as a fashionable pop cultural phenomenon, I think it's soon going to fade from significance, and we're already seeing some erosion. Richard Dawkins has frankly become an object of ridicule and even embarrassment among his fellow atheists. So I think that this movement has already seen its high peak and will continue to decline.